Starfleet was founded on a mandate of peaceful exploration, yet it continuously finds itself fighting brutal, existential wars across the galaxy. This dual reality forces Starfleet engineers to build two entirely different types of vessels, existing side by side within the same fleet. On one side is the multi-role exploratory cruiser, engineered for years of independent deep space endurance. On the other side is the dedicated tactical platform, built for raw combat survivability. The 289-meter Constitution-class was designed to carry over 400 people, while the squat 170-meter Defiant-class carries a fraction of that crew. To understand Starfleet's tactical evolution, we have to look past mission statements and analyze the physical space frames of the vessels themselves. A civilization's political goals are stated in treaties, but its geopolitical reality is permanently welded into the internal architecture of its ships. In the 23rd century, the Constitution-class was deployed on 5-year deep space assignments, operating entirely isolated from Federation starbase support. This cross-section blueprint shows the sheer internal volume required. Notice the green sections, 14 distinct research laboratories. Large blue areas are dedicated to spacious crew habitation. Look at the propulsion layout. Warp nacelles are mounted on long pylons, physically distant from the primary hull. This physical separation is a deliberate engineering safety feature, keeping the volatile warp coils safely away from the crew during extended exploratory missions. The design accounts for catastrophic emergencies by allowing the primary saucer section to physically separate from the engineering hull, acting as a massive lifeboat. While armed with phaser banks and photon torpedoes, these tactical systems were secondary additions to what was otherwise a mobile research platform. The physical layout of the Constitution-class represents the peak of Federation optimism, a belief that space is a place to be studied, not a battlefield. Dedicating maximum internal volume to science, safety, and crew comfort restricts a space frame's pure combat survivability. By the 24th century, this multi-role, high-volume design philosophy reached its limit with the massive Galaxy class. These 641-meter vessels mapped immense swaths of territory and established diplomatic contact with dozens of new species. However, a massive internal volume becomes a catastrophic liability when a ship encounters focused, specialized weapon fire. That design philosophy failed at the Battle of Wolf 359, when Starfleet encountered a highly specialized, lethal adversary in the Borg. This chart illustrates the devastating scale of that encounter. A single Borg cube destroyed 39 Federation vessels, revealing the statistical failure of using multi-role explorers as frontline warships. Shortly after, the emergence of the Dominion presented a second relentless existential threat, further reinforcing this tactical vulnerability. In response, Starfleet Tactical issued a mandate in 2366 to abandon the multi-role standard and build a vessel designed purely to fight and defeat the Borg. The project required severe architectural subtractions, no accommodations for families, no science labs, and no civilian luxuries. It had only one mandated addition: the dangerous integration of a highly volatile Class 7 warp drive directly into a minimal space frame. Surviving an existential threat requires stripping an organization's primary tool down to its most mathematically efficient, lethal core. The result was the Defiant-class, a 170-meter tactical asset that inexplicably generated the warp signature of a massive starship. This schematic reveals the extreme space frame compression required to fit a heavy cruiser into 4 decks. The massive Class 7 warp core dominates the interior, causing severe structural flaws. To compensate, engineers layered thick ablative armor and routed plasma directly into 4 forward-facing pulse phaser cannons. Scientific research space was completely eliminated to make room for expansive quantum and photon torpedo magazines. Crew survivability saw severe sacrifices. The main sickbay was reduced to a minimal triage center with a limit of just 4 biobeds. Habitation conditions were equally cramped, relying on shared bunk-style quarters instead of the individual cabins found on larger cruisers. Spatial economy was so tight that the ship's single, small mess hall had to act simultaneously as its tactical briefing room. The Defiant space frame proves that maximizing physical damage output inherently demands the total sacrifice of long-term habitability and operational endurance. During the Dominion War, the Defiant operated as a single-handed equalizer, repeatedly altering the survival odds of the Alpha Quadrant in combat. Post-war, Starfleet recognized they couldn't abandon their exploratory routes, but they could never forget the vulnerability exposed at Wolf 359. The result was the Sovereign-class, the physical synthesis of the Constitution's exploratory optimism and the Defiant's tactical requirement. This scale comparison shows the restoration of size and scientific capability, bringing the ship length back up to 685 meters. Yet it retains Defiant-era lethality, permanently integrating quantum weaponry and utilizing a flattened, streamlined combat geometry that reduces its sensor signature. This structural synthesis redefined Federation naval doctrine, treating combat lethality as a core requirement, not just an emergency afterthought. Architectural mastery exists in the space frame that reconciles the curiosity of the explorer with the survival of the soldier.